Let's take a look at the fantasy basketball waiver wire. Who's been added? Was it correct? Who's been dropped? Was that correct? Who should we add? Who should we drop? Let's take a look at moves that have been happening and let's listen to Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and imagine if I got a low taper fade. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Blue Sky at joshloyd.bsky.social, on Twitter at redrock_bball, on Instagram. Oh, yeah, on TikTok, actually, at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Go to FanDuel.com to get started. Also, check out LockedOnDaily.com and go and find the newsletter for your favorite team. Over there, you can check that out and get cracking, I guess. All right. We're talking about waiver wire. The fantasy basketball waiver wire is exactly where we're at here, and just the interesting things that that we might need to pay attention to, and the guys that have been added and moved on from, and how correct these decisions are. And sometimes it is interesting to look at these sort of things and see how wild some of the decisions that get made, and how bullish we can be on guys, and how skeptical we can be, and how quickly our opinions can change on that sort of stuff. And there's one of those names in particular that we're going to talk about in the show, which is going to be really intriguing to see people's thoughts on that. Let's just take a look though now at the most added players, and we use those couple of different qualifiers there. We use the Basketball Monster roster numbers, Yahoo, and Fantrax. I use a 48-hour period on Basketball Monster, and unbelievably, the most added player there is Spencer Dinwiddie. And I know his last couple of games have been good, and there's a large portion of this is that the Mavericks have got the Saturday-Sunday back-to-back. And Luka, I don't actually know if Luka has been ruled in for the game on Sunday. Let's have a look. Is he playing in that game on Sunday? Al Doncic. Let's have a look. We don't have any word on that yet, whether he's available for the game on Sunday yet. So Dinwiddie, who's been, outside of shooting 8% in one of those games, he's been really putting up good numbers. And I don't trust that at all for a second, but he's been solid. So that's why he's been added. The second guy that's been added there is Vasilije Micic, who has been fantastic. That's maybe oversetting. Micic has been very good. Right, with LaMelo Ball gone, with Trey Mann out for similar timeframes, and I do very much worry that Mann might be done because it's a back problem. There doesn't seem to be any sort of solution here, and they signed Isaiah Wong as a two-way point guard. Now, to me, that doesn't mean that there's any problem with LaMelo long-term. It's a calf strain for LaMelo. Yeah, it's a couple of weeks, but that doesn't suggest to me that's a long-term thing. Trey Mann's unresolved back problem suggests to me that that is a long-term thing. So I don't think Isaiah Wong really impacts Micic all that much, or he's just like insurance because you've got to have another point guard. And the Hornets in previous iterations of them would go into the season with like one point guard. And like then they go, hey, we're 10 games in, maybe we need Ish Smith. So they're trying to be a little bit proactive there, which I think is a good thing. So anyway, Vasilije Micic has been fantastic as a replacement assists guy. His scoring and shooting was better in the last game. And I believe, and I said this the other day, when the first news of Ball being out surfaced, that I said I'm grabbing Micic everywhere. And let me double check actually, because I did grab him in nearly every league that I'm in. That's not true exactly. I grabbed him in a lot of leagues that I was in, maybe four or five. And I'm pretty happy with that result at this point. And I'll just be rolling with him. Yeah, I've got him in 4 leagues and missed him in 2. There you go. And one of them he actually hasn't been grabbed yet. Interesting. All right, so we'll I might have to go and make a move on that one. We'll see. Anyway, Micic is a guy that I think should be rostered. He played 33 minutes or so. I think he's the guy that they need out there, and that is a must roster, especially in all category leagues. Points leagues are a little bit more iffy. On Yahoo, the most added player is Yves Micic. Again, I'm not going to double up because I believe Dinwiddie and Micic were the second and third most added players, but no point me doubling that up. Yves Micic has been playing pretty well at the moment. I still have some overall worries with some of his stat set stuff because he barely blocked shots for the first 4 weeks of the season, and the last couple of games he's been strong. It is going to get complicated when Herb returns and eventually when Zion returns, but there's a revolving door on that team with players in or out. So I don't mind grabbing Yves Micic and seeing where it goes. Again, wasn't good. Was not really a 12-team must. Is putting up 12-team numbers now, and we'll see where it goes. The other guy that's been added a lot on Yahoo is Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. He's had some really hot games, and with Gary Harris out, it's easy to make that correlation. Well, Harris is out, so KCP's doing a lot. And that's not necessarily the case. It's just that shots are going in. And that's great, but they hadn't gone in like ever in any other game outside of the last two. Now, we know what KCP can do. He can be a steals guy and a threes guy. And at the moment, the shots are going in. He's getting 2-3 extra minutes, and that's useful. So I don't mind that, but we have to understand the limitations of what KCP brings. On Fantrax, which uses a 7-day roster reporting, waiver reporting time, which I don't know why. I'm guessing that's I praise a lot of what Fantrax does as a fantasy site, but there are things that they do wrong, and this is bad. Like, to me, this is 7-day reporting period is like you just carried over from football and haven't done anything about it because it makes no sense. Like, who cares that Alfred Payton's the most added player? Doesn't matter. He's not he shouldn't be anymore. He's a reserve point guard who probably has a chance of falling out of the rotation at some point. It doesn't matter. So that's frustrating. You'll see it even more when we talk about the most drop players on Fantrax. But it is, I think part of the use of looking at that, right, is saying, wow, remember that time when we were all going and grabbing Alfred Payton? Because it was a thing. And the other guy that is the most added player is the pencil, Harrison Barnes. Barnesy. Yeah, because he had a nice little string of games, and we know that Barnes does this. He'll put 2 or 3 games together where every shot goes in. He gets a couple of extra opportunities to shoot, and it's great. And then we just don't care as we move forward, and that pattern is once again repeating itself. The most dropped players on Basketball Monster, Isaiah Stewart, number 1. Yep, fine. He was grabbed in a lot of spots. People thought that there was a minute share with Duren, and honestly, there really is, because Jalen Duren, by the way, terrible. I had a lot of concerns about Duren heading into this season, but evidently, nowhere near enough. I can be down on someone the way that I was with Duren and still be incredibly wrong. Because I thought that maybe he's 60-ish, 70-ish sort of a guy. And I worried about what Isaiah Stewart would do and how that would cap his upside. I worried about maybe his free throws wouldn't sustain. I worried about his lack of blocks, which actually hasn't been a problem. He just sucks. His defense is absolutely terrible, and Bickerstaff's not having any of it. But Stewart's also not super good. He's a solid enough backup center, and he's not a must-roster 12-team league player. Alfred Payton's also been dropped, which, of course, he should be. This is what I wanted to talk about, and that's Jared McCain has been dropped on Yahoo. And McCain moved to the bench last game with Kelly Oubre starting ahead of him. And one of the concerns that I've voiced many times about that Maxey and McCain backcourt pairing is they're both small and they both are terrible defenders. And that has some real concerns long-term. And with Paul George back, McCain's ability to get usage is not as important on that team. And what he was really doing, Jared, was playing massive minutes. He was shooting incredibly well, and he was just taking a ton of shots and not much else going on there. It's the non-robust fantasy game that requires 1 million minutes and shots to put up value. Last game, he didn't get those shots. He didn't get those minutes, and his fantasy value fell off a cliff. Now, personally, do I even have McCain? I don't even know if I've got him on a team. I think I've got him maybe on one team. I'm going to hold. Because, if there's one thing that I don't believe in, it's Kelly Oubre. So I don't know that that's going to hold as a starting group. But I also know that a McCain-Maxey backcourt is a gigantic... And go look at the data on this. You can look at the lineup stuff. It's terrible. The defense on that group is terrible because they're too small and they can't defend. And McCain needs the value of having the ball in his hands. And if Paul George is there and Maxey's there, and then eventually, I guess, at some point, Joel Embiid plays, what's he going to do? So it's a nice story. I love Jared McCain. Good bloke, funny bloke, triggers so many people. That's actually funny too. The way that people get so upset about him painting his nails, I find that funny. But McCain's ability as a fantasy basketball player, you've got to question it somewhat. And I will hold and see what happens in the next couple of games, but I don't know that that's a long-term thing. Also, people have bailed on Bilal Coulibaly, which, again, he's been terrible. The shots aren't going in at all, and that's one of the clear things that we talk about. It's is what this man is doing sustainable? And people will often look and go, well, yeah, he's averaging 18 and 7. Why wouldn't that be sustainable? But that's not what it's about. Shout out to Nikola Vucevic. It's about how are you getting the scoring? Does any of that make sense? Because Bilal was going 90% at the rim and 59% from the field. And you go, okay, well, has he improved this much? And the odds would have suggested no. And the results now suggest, yeah, absolutely not. He's back to being a poor shooter who's getting some defensive stats at times. And I think if you're in a shallow format, like 8, 10, I don't think that you need to hold on to Bilal necessarily. The minutes are still really encouraging, so that's strong. But usage is down, efficiency is down. I would still hold in majority of leagues, in 12-teamers I would hold, but we're at that spot where everything that Bilal was doing was based, it was like House of Cards-ish, much like McCain, and it sort of collapsed, and that happens. On Fantrax, the most dropped players, Grant Williams, who's been out for the season for a week, so sure, move on from him, and Zach Collins, which was a Wemby replacement a week ago. That is why, again, that 7-day reporting period just isn't anything that's actually useful from a real transaction perspective, Fantrax, but it's good for us to be able to look at it and just see how quickly things can change, but also how long ago things are that we were so interested in, or maybe excited about is the wrong word, but it shows you the length and breadth of a fantasy basketball season, I think. We're going to come back and talk about some must-roster guys, some droppable players as well. But before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. It is December. That is holiday season, whatever holiday it is that you celebrate. We all enjoy. Actually, you know what? I take that back. Maybe we don't enjoy this time of year, and that's okay as well. But we always like to try and find something that is good about this time. It's catching up with family, catching up with friends, end of school year, a break, a holiday, a work, cold weather. For us down here, warm weather. It's about getting cozy. It's about getting outside. Whatever it is that is something that's good for you, well, that's where BetterHelp can help you identify these things and get yourself feeling that way that you want to. Like, no one wants to be feeling bad all the time, and therapy can be a great way of getting in there, finding helping you identify where you find that comfort, bring it out, and making it a better thing for you. So, if you're thinking of starting therapy, go to BetterHelp now. It is online. Try it out. Fill out that questionnaire. You can suit it all to your schedule. And if your therapist that you get matched with does not fit with you, well, you can just change to another therapist at any time for no additional charge. So find your comfort this December with BetterHelp. Go to betterhelp.com/lockedonnba today to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. Okay. Let's get into the next part of this waiver wire show. We're going to talk about must roster players. Again, when we talk about things like must rosters and the appeal of these players, I'm not talking about is this guy going to be great in February. Like that stuff's really hard to know at this point because as we just detailed, 7 days is a bloody long time in the NBA and in fantasy basketball. So we're looking at guys that I think just if they're on your waiver wire, you grab them now, and we just figure it out later on. And that's Malik Monk, who is playing 1 million minutes in Sacramento with DeMar DeRozan out. I maintain that Malik Monk is, at worst, their fourth best player. At worst, I think he's a better player than Keegan Murray, personally, but I think at worst, and this was an interesting thing as well. At the time of that draft with Keegan Murray, I was very adamant that Keegan shouldn't go at whatever pick 4 it was, and I think they should have taken Jaden Ivey. And of course, that looked like a horrible take at that point, right? Because Keegan has been much better than Ivey during that time frame. And it looked terrible when I said, I can't believe the Kings are going to do this. Why they're doing this is an older player who I'm just not really sure where it makes sense on this squad. And I know they need a forward, but like you're the Kings. You don't need to desperately reach for a fit type of a player. And of course, they made the playoffs and had that really great season. The next 2 seasons, 1.5 seasons so far, have not been particularly good for the Kings. And right now, as we speak, and this is where draft stuff is really interesting, Jaden Ivey is the same age right now that Keegan Murray was as a rookie. And this is year 3 for Ivey. And if you look at like the EPM on both of these players, Ivey is actually ahead of where Keegan Murray was as a rookie. At the same sort of point, like he's ahead. So yeah, like the first 2 years and then Monty Williams sabotaging Jaden Ivey for the second year is ridiculous. And I'm not saying Ivey's been awesome, but that is where that age thing comes. Like it's really massive because again, like this is the same age that Keegan Murray was as a rookie, and Jaden Ivey's here now. It is and Ivey wasn't even a super young player; he was a sophomore. That is, and at plenty of times, this stuff doesn't work out. But you get this guy, he's this old player, he's NBA ready. That just is not always the case. And yeah, I don't know. I just found that information. I'm not saying that I was correct to say Ivey over Murray because Murray's clearly been better so far, and the size profile that Keegan has is still really good. But it is like just a different way of looking at it that now we are into year 3, and that's where we're at with that sort of stuff. Anyway, Goga Bitadze, while he is starting next to Wendell Carter Jr., yeah, he's a guy that we roster. I don't really have full faith in this long term. Of course, Paolo is going to return, and Goga could easily play 0 minutes. That's what Jamal Mosley did last season. But for now, the value is there. I think that Mike Conley should be rostered. Now, we have seen the Wolves be like... It's the Julius Randle experiment not going particularly well. He is one of the most annoying players in the NBA to watch, and evidently one of the most annoying players in the NBA to play with. And the Wolves are floundering, and they've tried different things, and they tried to make Dante DiVincenzo a point guard, and in the end they said, I know you're a million years old, Mike, but we need 32 minutes, and that's the only way we're going to get this thing turned around, and Conley is playing those minutes, and until something changes there, then we just roster him. Easy stuff, I think. I am putting Shaedon Sharpe on this list because he has been dropped, and his roster percentage is not high. But overall, I don't love Shaedon Sharpe as a fantasy prospect. I don't. There are so many holes in his game. He needs 35 minutes probably, 27 usage, other usage guys to not be there, and to be running as a pseudo point guard, which makes your team horrendous, by the way, because he's not a point guard. But that is what he needs to be a very good fantasy player. Unfortunately, those things don't exist on this squad. Avdir and Grant are going to play up ahead of him and they handle the ball. Simons and Scoot are going to be doing that as well. Kamara is next to him. So at the moment, Sharpe's sort of floundering. Now, I say all this to say, yeah, I would make sure that he's rostered for now. But my opinion might change on this really quickly. It could change in a different direction because Sharpe might start to develop super efficiency or become a defensive guy or start to run pick and rolls a lot better. I don't think he will, but he could. But in a week's time, I'd be like, yep, absolutely. Like, I'm in on Sharpe. Or in a week's time, I'd be like, no, it's just the same stuff. It's not changing. You move on. Like, this is not interesting. But for now, I think we grab him. I also think the BDNR, Nick Richards needs to be rostered. Nick Richards is back before Mark Williams and GTA 6. He came off the bench behind Moussa Diabate. I think that Richards will move in to that starting lineup. Oh, actually, you know what? I actually think that Richards coming off the bench means that Mark Williams is coming back very soon, and they want Richards to just play that reserve role, or they could just switch him into the starting group for the next game. That's possible too. It means we can drop Diabate, we can drop Tijan Salin, and we look at Richards as a guy to roster for now. Again, in 3 weeks' time, if Williams actually is returning and is not actually a ghost, if Mark Williams is back, Richards will probably be a 21-minute guy, which won't be enough, but we're not there yet, so that's okay. We deal with that later on. And these are all players that are droppable. Now, what do I mean by that? I think you know what I mean by that. It just means that if those players are on your roster, if these guys are on your roster and you're looking to say, should I look at Vasilije Micic? Could he be a player that I look to grab? Could I look to grab Mike Conley or Malik Monk? But my last roster spot is taken up by Bobby Portis. Well, my thing would be, what are we doing? Move on. Portis is... At the moment, I was going to say an injury replacement, but even when Giannis missed games, Portis didn't start anyway. So he's like a backup center who's doing nothing. Now, he is going to have a run. I'm very confident of this. And it makes me always scared to consider Bobby Portis a drop because he'll have a run where he has 20 and 9, someone gets hurt, he plays 27 minutes a night, shoots 50% from 3, and everyone hails him as a savior. But he is terrible on defense. He's older than you think, and a lot of the stuff has fallen off for Portis. I'd be more than happy to jack him off. I think it's also sort of obvious that Buddy Hield is a drop. Now, we'll say this with the Golden State Warriors. Foreseeable future legend Steve Kerr did come out and say, maybe we need to look into not playing 13 guys every night. Thank you, Steve. That would be great if you did that. And that would mean that some of the guys that get minutes are going to see fewer minutes or not play at all. I do not look at Buddy Hield and go, this is the guy you've got to prioritize. I think he's incredibly limited defensively, like horrible defensively. He doesn't do anything apart from shoot threes, which has value for a team, but how many teams have we seen get Buddy out there and go, maybe not, guys, maybe not. Maybe we don't want him out there. How many times has that happened? Sacramento, also New Orleans, Sacramento, Indiana, Philadelphia, now Golden State. At some point, 5 out of 5 NBA teams can't be wrong. We'll see. I think he's droppable, but I am a little cautious to see. If they cut 3 guys from the rotation and he gets 7 minutes and plays 28, then it is more interesting. I also think Santi Aldama can be considered a drop. Now, Aldama just keeps getting things done, but as a guy that played like 30 minutes a night last season and wasn't my roster, he's getting stuff done in like 22 minutes a night, and there's a lot of it, much like with the Bilal stuff from earlier, where I go, that doesn't feel real. How's that going to stick at that level? And that's sort of where I am with Santi. So if he's on my roster and he's my worst player, then I think that it's not someone you go, well, my team's so strong, I've got to hold Aldama under all circumstances. Now, if I'm in a 14 league, I probably would say that. If I'm in a 12 team, I don't think I would. Klay Thompson, much like Buddy Hield there, what is he doing? Or he's currently not even playing. He was currently not, before that he wasn't doing anything good. And that's, to me, he's obviously, and I say obviously without knowing people's internal thoughts, I would say people are holding on due to name recognition. And in a very Warriors-heavy portion of the show, why are we still bothering with John Kuminga? I'll say the same stuff about Kuminga that I said from here. Actually, just copy and paste it. They might cut the rotation down. But this man needs 30 minutes. He needs to have 24 usage. And like I have said all the time with Kuminga, and you can say that it is bias, and that is okay. To me, bias is just an opinion that you don't like. That's what I have found from people criticizing. Oh man, you're just biasing this guy. No, I just actually have an opinion, and this is how I view him. And I view that with Kuminga, a terrible defender who doesn't seem to know where he is when he's playing basketball. It's like, what are you doing? What is that decision? But an incredible athlete who can't defend and can't shoot threes. What are you actually doing? Like, he played backup center in that game last game, and that actually might be his best position. But Steve Kerr hates the way that he plays so often. He doesn't generate assists, steals, blocks, good percentages at all. And he needs big minutes and big usage. And none of that's happening. But after the Warriors lost, do they just change things up? I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that Kuminga's good enough to be that player. But he's been a drop for weeks, but people still have not done that. Maybe that will turn out to be correct. I guess we will find out in due course. We're going to come back and talk about some more addable players, droppable options, or injury replacements, that sort of stuff. But today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Get ready to tackle all of the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That FanDuel Sportsbook app, you know the app, it's so sexy. You open it up, and everything that you need is there. You're going to place your live NFL bets. You open it up, and you can see all of the stuff that you need, the live updating stats, the live updating play-by-play information, everything that you would need to place those live NFL bets is there on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. So go to FanDuel.com right now, join today, and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Go to FanDuel.com RN, and never waste that RN, by the way, is just internet slang for right now. It's not part of the website. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. Let's go through the rest of this waiver wire show extravaganza. We'll talk about players at the moment that are hot. Guys that are in the top 100 over the last week per game, category leagues, and whether it makes sense to be rostering them. And number one there is Ty Jerome. And Milk has put up 3.3 steals per game over that time frame. The shooting has started to cool off, but no, we do not need to roster Ty Jerome. It's a great story if you added him and you got 55% shooting from 3 and 3.3 steals a game. Fantastic, but there is zero ability for that to hold. And you know that basically the next game or the game after, and LeVert and Wade and these guys returning, he's not going to do this. It's literally impossible. It will not happen. I categorically guarantee this. 99.999%. I categorically guarantee it. It will not happen. None. No chance. Not happening. So, yeah, he's been great. Not real. Julian Champagny. He is just continuing to put up numbers with guys out. Vassell, low minutes load. Sohan, out. When those two things change, I don't see how Champagny keeps it up. But for now, we keep rolling with him. Just getting little bits and pieces. Not really blowing us away, but a top 60 rank is a top 60 rank. Marcus Smart's also been very good in the 2 games since he returned. I've got some skepticism about about Smart doing this long term, but he's a guy with an established track record. He's putting up pretty strong numbers on a weird Grizzlies team that's spreading out all their minutes. Those numbers are great. They're on the back of some assists and steals, which probably don't hold, but I don't mind streaming him in. Malcolm Brogdon, 66th. They are unbelievably prioritizing Malcolm Brogdon, Kyle Kuzma, Corey Kispert, all these players that have no future on the team. I don't understand. I know they probably want to win a game. Guess what? It's not working. They went winless in all of November, the Wizards. But while Brogdon is playing and healthy and upright and on this team, then we use him. And they're giving him those minutes over Bob Carrington, over Keyshawn George, over any lick of common sense. But Brogdon's actually a better player. Yes, he is. That's cool. That's done a lot for everything. Brogdon is a solid option for now. Just a long-term thing that won't work. And how about, now sit down. If you're not watching on video, you don't know what's coming up now. Maybe you do. Maybe you heard the voice, you heard the excitement. What about this man, the 99th ranked player over the last week? Maybe everything I've said about this man has been wrong all the time. Maybe he is actually just the GOAT that's hidden in Wolves clothing. Maybe Taylor Horton-Tucker is awesome. No, he's not, but he's 99th over the last week. How? Well, I believe he's shooting like 80% from the field. He is getting minutes for some reasons. You wouldn't want to give Bazelis playing time or see what you got a little bit in Dalen Terry. Actually, I know what you got in Dalen Terry. It's nothing, so we're good with that. We can move on. Julian Phillips. Yeah, let's get a little bit of Taylor Horton-Tucker in there. So how's it been happening for old mate THD? How's he been putting up this sort of production? Again, it's just been, he's been playing like 14, 15 minutes a night. Again, it's the small sample size, 1 week level of production that has got him here. And you know what? 86% from the field probably is that's all I need to say. He's averaging 16 points in 14 minutes. 26 usage, 86% shooting, 89% from three. It's just not going to hold. It's not real. It's fake. It's one of the fakest stat lines you'll ever see. He is 8 of 9 from 3 in his last 3 games. So yeah, like he's a top 100 player. So if you somehow, tripped over, knocked yourself out, woke up, accidentally hit an ad on Taylor Horton-Tucker 3 games ago, you got one of the best streams you'll ever get. But it's complete fluke and it has no basis in reality. The other one there that's more based in reality is Leaky Beasley. Now, there's going to be a period here where Malik Beasley struggles. The shots won't go in, but I tell you what, and this is actually genuine. Tim Hardaway Jr. suffered that really bad head injury. I feel like he shot about 4% since he returned, and that is hyperbolic. But it's also not. And basically, since Tim has come back, he's been just dreadful. And I would worry that there are like post-concussion things. I don't know. It has been a very, I won't say Tim Hardaway was good before he got hurt, because he wasn't. But these are Tim Hardaway's shooting percentages since he came back. 10%, 17%, 25%, 50%, wow, that's a good one. 40%, 38%, and 0%. So yeah, like Tim is really struggling and Beasley is playing unbelievably well. And at the moment, with Hardaway playing like trash and Cade sat the back-to-back, and I think Cade's going to be okay moving forward, so I don't think we worry too much there. But Beasley's got stream value. Long-term, don't really think it, but what is long-term outside of just a glimpse into the mirror of the future, which are nonsense words, but maybe you find something in it. What about guys that are injury replacement type guys? Gershon Yabusele. Joel Embiid maybe returns at some point. Who knows? Andre Drummond looked to have a serious injury. I don't know exactly what the injury was. Well, I do know. He stepped on someone's foot and sprained his ankle, but there were some fears, I thought, from some people about an Achilles. Yeah, re-watching it, I think it's more high ankle sprain, but that's a 6-week type of scenario. So Yabusele is a guy that can play the 4. He can play the 5. He played 30 minutes a night. He's okay as a let's see what happens sort of a player. I believe that Jalen Wilson is the guy over Zaire Williams, over Shake Milton, over Keon Johnson, over Jalen Martin. Or there's 2 Martins on the team, Tyrese Martin as well, with Cam Thomas out. It's going to be shaky, I think, but Wilson is the guy that I grabbed. And so is that bias or is that just an opinion? 6 of 1, I guess. So Wilson is the player that I looked at with Cam Thomas out and someone I'm a little bit interested in grabbing. And then we also stay in Brooklyn because Nick Claxton has been sort of in and out with a back problem. Daron Sharpe is returning and Noah Clowney is out as well. So Trended Watford, this is more for the deeper leagues, not quite the Onyxers. Don't worry, we'll get to you guys. But Trended Watford's at least on the 16s, maybe 14 team short-term streams. I think with Zach Edey out, and Edey's probably coming back this week, I think Brandon Clark is doing a little bit more than Jay Huff, and Jay Huff is absolutely not a 12-team league player. He's not. Brandon Clark has got a little bit of short-term value, not super exciting, but there's something there while Edey is out. I think that if Kyle Kuzma remains out, I think Keyshawn George is still going to be okay. Now, last game, it was Valanciunas, but I do believe that the Valanciunas matchup, and the next one even as well, was because it was up against Brook Lopez and Giannis in Milwaukee. The next game for Washington is against Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. Talk about a terrible matchup. So I think getting that size of Valanciunas in there next to Sarr will be something they look at in that one. But the other games, I think it might be Keyshawn George over Valanciunas because they've been limiting what Valanciunas did, playing him like 14, 15 minutes a night, which of course is not good enough. Also, side note on Valanciunas, remember all of the Pelicans front office spouting how good it is to have Valanciunas next to Zion because he's a floor spacing center. Stretch 5. He's down to 5% three-point attempt rate this season, Valanciunas. They just said, I'm not shooting threes anymore. Because he can't. He's not a good shooter. Anyway, Valanciunas got those minutes in the last game and he might get him in the next one. But I do think that if Kuzma does remain out longer term, that George will be the guy to look at, though that is shaky. And then, I didn't leave you guys out. The double Onyx, Platinum, Diamond, Titanium leagues. KJ Simpson. He is backing up Vasilije Micic, and Simpson's not a bad player, eh? KJ Simpson, an older rookie second-round pick from Colorado. He was the best player on that team that had Tristan da Silva and Cody Williams, who both went in the first round. He's a little bit undersized, but he's a good steals guy, good assist player. He got his shots up. And in deeper leagues, KJ Simpson needs to be rostered. Yes, they signed Isaiah Wong, but Simpson's a better player than Wong, I believe. And he is just a name for those 20-teamers, 30-teamers, 18-teamers. I honestly might even look into 16-teamer to see whether KJ is there, because I just think he's going to be, look, not quite TJ McConnell, but maybe TJ McConnell. No, not quite, but yeah, different field goal percentage type profile, though. Lastly, I've got 6 other names I want to talk about, and one of them is in Golden State. It's Brandon Podziemski, because Podziemski is obviously a very interesting player who we thought we'd be able to get something good out of at the beginning of the season, and then nothing happened. He couldn't hit a single shot. The rebounds were down. The minutes got dropped. But last game he started. He started over Hall Pass legend Lindy Waters III and played good minutes. And with the Warriors, again, talking about the consolidation of a rotation, if Pods is a 30-minute player, then yes, I am in 12-team leagues. And the fact that he started, and then that led to them having that discussion about squeezing the rotation down, I wouldn't mind going back and adding Podziemski. I understand it might not work, but I think it's worth looking at. There are people who are grabbing Lonzo Ball. Lonzo's last game was encouraging. He played 21 minutes, which I did not think was going to happen. And the game before that, he put up really good defensive numbers. But there is an idea here around Lonzo that, like, yeah, I'm going to hold him, I'll wait, and he's going to ramp up and play 28 minutes by the end of the season. This is, again, an opinion. I don't think that'll happen. It might. Maybe that his knee just has been an absolute modern medical miracle, which is possible as well, and he's ready to go, and then they fully bench Josh Giddey, or they trade Levine, or they trade Giddey, or Kobe White is hurt, or Dosunmu is done, or whatever. There's a million things, but there are a lot of players there. And Lonzo, I'll be honest with you, I think fully healthy Lonzo is the best out of everyone I mentioned. The best player from Giddey, Levine, White, Dosunmu. Like, I think a healthy Lonzo is the best player there. Not even fantasy. He's the best real-life player out of that group. But I don't know that he gets there. And I don't know the minutes get there. And I think it might be a frustrating process to hold waiting for that. But the minutes last game were a surprise to me, so that's interesting. I think if you're looking for scoring, and you don't want to bury yourself in trying to figure out what the hell Keldon Johnson does, Bryce Sensabaugh in Utah is getting minutes. Cody Williams is back in the G League, and there's no real other threes on that team. And Sensabaugh, he'll get his shots up. He's a solid enough rebounder. Sometimes he gets steals. But as a scoring boost in deeper leagues, Bryce Sensabaugh is someone to look at. Josh Green's also had a couple of strong games. I don't really trust Green in his offensive output, but he is starting. He will continue to start, and there is no LaMelo, and there is no Trey Mann. And that does give an extra opportunity with Micic next to him instead of LaMelo Ball's 1,000,000% usage. That does allow Green to do a little bit more. So he's at least on my 14-team radar for now. And at the moment in Miami, Duncan Robinson is starting. Now, I don't know how long that lasts. He's continued to start over Terry Rozier. And I considered putting Rozier on the droppable list. And I think that if I'm in a 10-teamer, I'd be okay with that. Because I don't think he can be a real strong top 100 player. But I also don't have faith that Robinson's going to continue to start over Rozier. But we know that if a 30-minute Duncan Robinson exists, and maybe it does, that can be at least 12-team adjacent. 12-team, pop your head in, take your head out sort of style. A little bit like that, David Beckham meme. Come on, be honest. Come on, be honest. That one, like he's, here you going? Just pops his head in. I think that's sort of maybe where we're at with Robinson. The last thing I want to talk about is Dalton Connect, who was a guy that we grabbed. We wanted to see what happened. He went to the bench. He did nothing. He moved back to the starting lineup. He looks good again. What I said earlier about Jared McCain applies here. Connect, he's shooting, his 3-point numbers are well above college. His 2-point numbers are about the same, if not higher. And his free throw numbers, he was only, I think, 78% in college, and he's at like 90 now. And he's getting really good amount of shots as a starter, and everything is going in. But the worry that I have with Connect, which is fine to have him, is that if the shots drop by 2 a game, if the shots don't go in, if he becomes a 78 free throw guy again, a 36 3-point player, instead of 44 and 92, whatever his numbers are. Actually, I probably should check that before I start just making numbers up. But if that stuff isn't there, and he doesn't hold, and the minutes go to 29 a game, even as a starter, as the force that is Cam Reddish and Rui Hachimura take back over, That's where we have the concerns. I look at his numbers. He's shooting 44% on 3, 89% from the line. But to just be completely honest with this, over the last 6 games, he's down to 80% from the line, Dalton Connect. And that's about where he was in college. Now he's hitting 49% of threes and 58% on twos in that same time frame, and that gives him 18 points a game, but it's 1 assist, it's half a steal, it's 0 blocks, it's 1.5 free throw attempts. If it's not scoring, there's nothing. It's scoring and it's threes, and that is it. And if instead of hitting, like he's hit 4 threes a game over his last 6 games, Connect, if he's hitting 2 a game, 2.2 a game with 14 points, that's a waiver wire player. He, much like McCain, his game is not robust. He doesn't have rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, free throw volume. He doesn't even have a track record of good percentages. But for now, we roster him. Just be very, very cautious about it. And that is a waiver wire show. We are out of here. I want you to go follow me on all the socials. I want you to thumb it up. And I want you to comment and double bang and do all of that stuff here over on YouTube. But remember, Thanksgiving is over. We head into December. Be good to yourself. Be nice to yourself. Celebrate the good things. And know that there is somebody out there. There's somebody in the world who knows that you did something good. We ignore the good. I ignore the good about myself all the time, and I focus on the negatives. And it's bad for me. Right? It might be 1% of things negative, 99% good. And you go, but why did this guy say that? Why did he call me a beta cuck soy boy? I don't even like soy. Right? Focus on the good. It'll make you feel better. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.